What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be taking a look at a bike that is pretty cool. It's designed for long bike packing adventures, Tour Divide, that type of thing, and it's made of titanium. It's the Binary Havok. So this is the Binary Havok. It's made by Binary, obviously, and this is, the third bike that I've gotten in from them. As is the case with all their bikes, it's a beautiful titanium frame with some pretty cool lines, some pretty cool things like this, those floating stays right there to add some compliance in that seat tube. I recently just finished up with the Kinetic, which is another one of their bikes. The Havok's kind of like the drop bar cousin to the Kinetic. One of the telltale signs there is something right here, these drop tank mounts, as well as these right here, the rack mounts, all of that. It's got mounts for days, just like the Kinetic had. The big difference, though, is this bike is not as long. It's not meant for as long of a travel as a fork. And it's got a lot shorter reach, effective top tube, all of that, because it's designed to be used with drop bars. In many ways, this kind of reminds me of titanium version of the Cutthroat. And when I first had that thought, I thought, oh, well, then maybe it's just like the Fargo. But it's not. It's not as relaxed as the Fargo. The Havok is still meant for going fast, and it's meant for little skinnier tires and things like that. So the build that I have here is I'm running 29 by 3-inch tires. Yes, it can clear them, and it clears it plenty well, as you can see right here. We did have to slide the dropouts back a tiny bit, but look at all that right there. Plenty of room. And while I'm right here, I might as well take a look. This is the Wheeltop EDS OX. This is a wireless mountain bike drivetrain. So flat bar, I guess, is a better word for it. And I have it set up with this cassette right here. This is the only cassette I happen to have on hand. So it's an 11 to 42 tooth. Not the biggest range, but we'll be fine. Up front, it's running a 32 tooth chainring with these Atlas cranks. Just a nice stock rigid seat post. And then up here is where things get a little bit more interesting. I'm running the Falcon bars. As I've mentioned a couple times already, this is kind of more meant for drop bars, but according to Binary, you can also run it with something like this, which I probably would have tried anyway, go back to the Cutthroat analogy, my own Cutthroat, I ran flat bars for a while, really liked that. So these are their Falcon bars, which I have a review on. Check that out as well if you're interested in them. They are titanium, of course. And taking a look at the fork, this is from Traverse, which is based in the UK. It's the Evo Prong. It's a cross-country carbon fork. Boost spacing. You can get these on here or not. This is going to be part of a review on its own, so watch out for that if you are on the lookout for a carbon mountain fork. If you think that a rigid fork is not really what you're after, that's okay. This bike can actually run a 100 mil suspension fork. So you could throw that on if you wanted that extra squish, and that's what your ride demanded. This bike is up for the task. All right, now into the geometry, the nitty gritty. Okay, so this is a size medium. That's, typically I would ride a large, but the medium is closer to like a 56 if you are used to drop bar sizing. So the effective top tube on it is 565. Again, think that 56 centimeters. The reach is 384, and the stack is a nice and tall 630. It's pretty evident just by looking at the frame. It looks kind of short and pretty tall. One of my favorite things about the design of this bike, though, is the head tube angle, which is 68.5 degrees. I love 67 degrees as a general all-purpose, but that's a little more shreddy. I like a 67 paired with a 110, 120 mil fork, and not necessarily with drop bars or alt bars like this. I think it's a really good middle ground. It gets the front tire out there a little bit farther, a little more confident on descents, but still very good steering. The seat tube is 74 degrees, which again is basically my favorite number. You're not super over the bottom bracket, but you also don't need to be, because again, the reach isn't super long. Back here, I already mentioned these adjustable chain stays. In the shortest position, they are at 445. In the longest, they go out to 460. So you get 15 millimeters of adjustment, which is great. You can make it nice and stable or a little bit more playful. And to keep the stability, you've got 70 mils of bottom bracket drop, which is great, especially if you're going to be running bigger 29 plus tires like these right here. Please excuse the sealant. This tire kicked my butt getting mounted on that rim. A couple other final things before we get this out for its first ride is it's got a 31.6 millimeter seat post, so you can run a dropper, and it's boost spacing. So again, it's a drop bar mountain bike. That's how I would view this bike. Drop bar adventure mountain bike meant for the Tour Divide. I really like the fit of this bike. Very upright position, really comfortable. It would be great with drop bars. I'll probably try it with them at some point in this review. If you've never seen me review a bike on my channel, what I do is I get the bike in, kind of do a video like this where it's over the specs, talk about the bike a little bit, the design, take it for a first ride. This is a standard loop I do on every bike, no matter the season. And then I ride it for a couple months and put out a long-term-ish review, kind of more of my thoughts and more in depth. So this first ride is really just to get some first impressions and to understand the bike a little bit more. Back end's not spinning out when I stand. Partially from that rear end, partially from the benefits of a 3-inch tire. If you're wondering if you can run smaller tires, yes, you most definitely can. Binary mentions being able to run, I think they just say gravel tires, which is a little ambiguous. I don't know if I would go smaller than maybe a 45 millimeter, but I'll try, and I've got some 50 millimeter Ramblers, which luckily are also boost spacing, so on the wheels they're on. So I'll throw those on. I don't know, man. I love 3-inch tires so much. I think they go great with a bike like this. But if you were going to be wanting to really be fast, you're going to want to go smaller. So I better try that out. See how she does on a descent. I've got a very weird hydraulic brake on this side, a cheap one, and then a mechanical Avid brake on this side. So it's going to be interesting. I should have put a dropper on. Whew. Wow, those brakes are not working. Okay, they'll catch up. And then we'll be good. Whew. That 42 tooth is kicking my butt. It's not bad with smaller tires, but with 29x3s, they're so tall. That 42 tooth feels tiny. I could see Jones and Malocos and these, obviously the Falcons on here, being a good match. With the short top tube, you can get up on the front for an alternate position that's really comfy. Or even, as is really popular now on these long rides and races, is some, I don't know if you call them tri-bars, I guess they're aero bars, but most people are using them for comfort now. They're up nice and high, you just rest on it like that. It'd be a good bike for that. To me, an adventure bike has to be something that, one, you can carry stuff on, because what's an adventure without some exploring, getting into things you don't know, and, you know, maybe some overnight stuff. But generally, I think in this case, it's something that is decently fast on dirt roads, pavement, and then can handle some trails, some rough double track, some forest roads and mining roads. stuff that's torn up and you don't really know. You don't necessarily need suspension for it, but you need some geometry that's nice and stable, clearance for some bigger tires, kind of like this. Let's get some speed, see how the stability is. Again, I have the chainstays probably at like 450, so not slammed all the way forward, but there's still 10 more millimeters. Woo-hoo-hoo. A little more playful than I was expecting. It's not skittish, but a little bit at that high speed. It's not as stable as some of the other bikes I've been riding. All right, let's see. It's gonna get a little bit technical for a second. Just a little rocky, not really technical steering or anything like that, but just gotta maneuver your way through, see how it does. The brakes are much better, thanks for asking. Whew, especially with the snow. Whew. Oh yeah. Yeah, a little more of a traditional cross-country feel on that stuff. A little old school. That's to be expected. Kind of makes me think, though, that this could be a better all-rounder than I was thinking. Just with how much more playful it feels. That means you could run flat bars and a suspension fork and, I don't know, some XC tires or something. Have a lot of fun with that. And then when you wanted to do more touring, have more stability, put the drop bars on, some smaller tires, carbon fork, or a rigid fork, I guess. Doesn't have to be carbon. And I don't know, it'd probably do great at both of those. Now we get into the most technical portion. I don't have any reservations about it. Usually that other little section up there, I learn a lot before I get down here. It makes me nervous. Like I know, okay, it's gonna be a little sketchy. Nice and maneuverable on that little tight turn. Right there through that section, it kind of reminds me of the Jones SWB. Like, it's more playful than you would think. The rear end feels shorter than it is. And I don't know, with the big tires, it just feels similar. But this flowy fast stuff is really fun. All right, that was a fun little ride. It was different than I expected, this bike. I don't know why. I think I was expecting a much more stable ride, a little less playful, less the steering to be a little bit more stable. I don't know why in my mind. It's 68.5 degrees. I should have expected that with the head tube angle, the length of the fork, the bigger tires, I guess. It was just a more playful bike than I expected. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But again, that's why I do a first ride and then I go ride it for a couple of months, because there's a lot to learn. You can look at something on paper, you can have some assumptions, but they're not always going to be right. So you got to get out there and actually test it. Things I do like about this bike, though, obviously the mounting locations. I'm not necessarily going to use all of those, as I've said before. I don't really go bike pack or anything like that, but just don't have the time. But, you know, you could carry lots of water. You got mounts down here as well, up here. You can run that dropper, which I probably will. I'll probably steal it off a different bike. And then I, of course, love the tire clearance. I'm always going to love it if it can fit a 29x3. Because it is a little more playful, I do think I will swap this out, at least while I have flat bars on. So maybe I won't end up doing that at all, but I want to try it out with some suspension, because then it could be, I don't know, really fun. I think it would have been a little bit of a different experience on this ride. Not that it had any issues, but maybe could have taken some of the rowdier sections a little faster, things like that. Of course, I'm going to try it with drop bars. I have a few in mind. I was originally thinking maybe the top shelf, but the stack on this is definitely high enough that I don't think I need the added rise from those bars. So maybe I'll throw the kitchen sink bars on here or something like that. But those adventure type drop bars, I think will do great on here. Ooh, the Wren Perseverance. That's probably what I'm going to put on it. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this first look at the Binary Havok. I think it's a beautiful bike, as always, from Binary. They seem to have a really unique look that I just really like. And they do that without losing any of the practicalness or utility or function of the bike, which is pretty cool. If you want to learn more about this bike, check out the description. There's a link down there. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.